Okay, so welcome, welcome to everyone. So this is the fourth lecture on reliability for OCS batch 15th batch. So in the last lecture we have understood the concept of reliability for series and parallel connected subsystem, and also finally we have formulated a logic, we have formulated one mathematical problem that how to maximize the reliability by keeping the manufacturing cost as a constant. So today we will learn about voting logic. So we know we heard about when the voting logic is concerned, all of we know what is 2 out of 3 voting. So we will learn it now, and I will share you one of my practical experience long back, maybe some 20 years back or more than that. When I was student or just passed out, I implemented it in a glass bottle manufacturing plant. So you know, in the glass manufacturing plant, if you have seen the plant, the molten silicon or molten glass, it will come and some pressure will be applied. The molten silica, it will be dropped in a mold, then through a pipe will come there like that. It will insert and it will apply the pressure, and then inside it is become hollow, and the required shape will be the molten silicon, it will be translated to the desired shape as per the mold. But the problem is there, the pressure, what pressure is to, till there will be a pressure limit. You have to limit the pressure, otherwise there will be a deformation, and if the pressure is more, the molten silicon, maybe the internal grain structure may be disturbed. I am not expert on ceramic, so that those people can tell. So but if you do that, there will be some deformation or some structural issue in the glass, or during the curing they will face some problem. So assignment was given that you have to implement that 2 by 3 voting system, so that the inlet solenoid will be cut off once the desired pressure is reached. And this is for the enhancement of reliability also. Okay, so now I will tell you what is that and how it is to be implemented. So say this is the inlet line pressure. Okay, this is the inlet pressure, and this is the mold. So this part is it will be top. It will be not inserted here. First the molded silicon, it will be inserted, it will be dropped here, then this part will insert and the pressure will apply, and this molten silica, it will take this mold shape. This is the mechanism. For that, as I told the cutoff should be there. So say this is one, this is the solenoid, this is the solenoid, and from this place 3 pressure transmitter is connected. Here is 3 pressure transmitter connected. So this is PT1, this is PT2, this is PT3. Now that 2/3 voting system basically is nothing but if any two of these 3 pressure transmitter indicates that the desired pressure is reached, that time this solenoid valve should cut off. This is only the 2/3 voting system. Okay, that means that time this molten silica, it will convert the exact shape of the mold. So that time I can remember I used TSX Micro. TSX Micro PLC, it's a Schneider Modicon PLC, and PL7. This was used for ladder. So I'll share you the logic and the code how it is made. So this is connected to, this is the functional block diagram. So this 3 PT, that is 4 to 20 milliamps. These are the 4 to 20 milliamps. It is connected to this analog inputs, 3 analog inputs in the FBD, functional block diagram. Okay, then it is going to a greater than block. This is a greater than block. And that means there will be a set pressure. That set pressure is the desired pressure to inflate the silicon properly to get the mold shape. Okay, so that will be the set pressure for all these 3 blocks. Then it will be actuating one coil. It's the memory coil. It's a memory coil. Okay, so give name A, B and C. Now how once any one of these 3 any two of these 3 is coil is actuated, this should be cut off. Okay, only I am, is the logic is slightly bigger, but I am not showing all other feedback and protection are also there, but I am not telling that, only telling this voting logic part. So this is your ladder. Now you see I am giving let me draw first. So this is A, this is B and this is C, and this is the trip coil, the cutoff coil of the solenoid O1 suppose. Now you see what I have done. This is a NC normally close, normally open, normally open. So A is normally close. Now if so, here what will happen if B, now here I will give one more condition. Okay. So if all the transmitters, they are working fine and giving the satisfactory performance, then this line will work. So all NO become NC and it will actuate the solenoid, which will cut off, and the pressure inside the molten silicon, it will be controlled. Now if even though the pressure is reached, but this first transmitter is not working, that time this A will not actuate. So that's why it is already NC, and then B and C will work. That time the path is like this and your solenoid will cut off. Another condition, say B is not working fine but A and C is working fine. So that's why I taken B as NC. So this, the feedback will be, the response will be taken from A and C, and that time through this path the solenoid will be actuated. On the other hand, if C is not working, even the pressure reached, but it is not able to give the desired electrical output to the PLC, that time, that's why you see I have given C as normally close. Okay, normally close. Then B and C, it will work, and through this path it will actuate. Okay, so now you see from here it is very clear that if any two out of three is getting actuated, then also this system will work satisfactorily. Okay, so definitely already we understood that what is the reliability of series and parallel system. So these are the practical implementation. I have shared you that about the 2 by 3 voting logic. Okay, and this is only normally in all nuclear system. In this way only it is implemented. There will be lot of other considerations, but the basic thing is like that only. Now let us understand how the reliability is getting increased. So from this ladder, it is very clear that the three systems are in a subsystem, you can tell, are in series, and there is a 4 parallel path. Okay, 4 parallel path. So parallel path means, what will parallel path means? Once all the parallel path will be failed, that time only the entire system will fail. Okay, so already we know how to find out the reliability of the series a cascaded connected subsystem. So you can, if you can consider the reliability of A is 98%, B is 99%, C is 95%. This is the reliability. Okay. Now you can find out the failure of this rung. Okay. So in this rung, this is, if A is failed to integrate also, this too will take care. So series means, so that first rung. So the failure, the reliability we know in series connected system, this will be multiplied. Okay. So as the reliability given here, so that is 0.98 into 0.99 into 0.95. This is this rung, and similarly this rung, and this rung. You can find out the reliability. If you find the reliability, then the failure rate will be complement of that. So you can find F1. That means 1 minus R1. Now for parallel path, the overall failure should be the product of all this. That means F1 into F2 into F3 into F4. You can find out that. Once you find out that, then you can find out the overall reliability also. RS is equal to 1 minus Fs. And you can see, after calculating, definitely the overall reliability will be increased. Okay. So basically this was about 2/3 voting logic, and I have shown the implementation. This you can implement in microcontroller or any other system also. In my lab there was a demonstration of a preheating system. Basically there one small vessel is there, so there the temperature will be controlled. Normally for temperature, because as the temperature is a very slow process, that means if you increase the heat instantaneously, but the temperature will not increase in impulsive way, there will be no impulse, because temperature rise is a very slow process. So normally people will, for heating system, people will consider on-off control. But there we implemented a sliding mode control, because to apply PID also it is not be so easy, because to have an idea about the time constant of the system, thermal time constant of the system also matter lot of, because analytical method may not be appropriate for finding out the transfer function of the system, and you know, unless otherwise I am not getting the transfer function and it is getting linearized, then the tuning of PID or PI, it will be a difficult task. So always better to implement some model free adaptive control. So sliding mode control is one among them. You can tell almost it is model free adaptive control. So we have implemented that, and very nicely we are able to control the temperature, and there also we implemented this 2/3 voting system just to see the reliability enhancement, means to conceptualize. And definitely from this discussion we understood that this will exhibit some better result. So the students, if they are interested to see that, after this course, once I will assemble the things again and I will show you, so that you can have a better practical approach to conceptualize this 2/3 voting system. The next part is, today we will start with some maintenance. So concept of maintenance. So what are the benefit of planned maintenance? So first of all, if you predict, if you plan for a scheduled maintenance, then definitely we will be doing the maintenance to avoid the breakdown. So if you plan for a maintenance, you can eliminate some unnecessary maintenance. Okay, and definitely the rework cost will be reduced. Some critical plant where the you are producing a large volume of product, so their plant maintenance is very important, because if any breakdown occurred, you have to bear with the loss, lot of you have to compromise with the revenue. So to avoid the loss of production, this planned maintenance are important. If you are not doing the proper maintenance, and once the fault or the breakdown occurred, then only we are getting conscious, then it will incur some repair cost also. And this is a time consuming. You have to pay time and cost. So this can be avoided. The repair can be avoided if you do the maintenance, and prior to its fail, if you are taking the preventive action. So definitely this planned maintenance will reduce the repair. Increase the efficiency. So there is a milling machine, or there is a lathe through which you are making a particular part, a bush, okay, the bush for the DG or the any combustion engine. So where you need very high high tolerance, but if you are not doing the proper maintenance of your lathe machine, say the gearbox is not proper, so when you will be doing the machining of the bush, you will be losing the tolerance of it, and it is to be and that to anticipate that, you have to pay in the performance of your DG. So it's a cumulative it will be a cumulative hazard, or I can tell cumulative deterioration of the efficiency of the entire system. So definitely to increase the efficiency of a system, you need to go for a planned maintenance. Okay. Then if you avoid, as it was told, that it will improve the quality of the product. Okay, say if for my car, if I regularly, if I am changing the engine oil and the coolant, then the heat evacuation from the engine, that means mainly where the constant friction is taking place from the liner area where the piston is moving, and inside the oil chamber crank is rotating, so there also the connecting rod and the crankshaft, it is rotating with that engine RPM. So that will basically the oil is giving the lubrication, so the frictional loss will be reduced. So if you do that kind of planned maintenance, if the periodically, if the kilometer reached or the time elapsed, if I change the engine oil and the coolant, then definitely the performance of my engine will be better, which will give extended life. In a production plant, if you do the plant maintenance, it may increase the capacity. It means once the plant is going towards its life, then after that the operation head will decide that the plant will be operated with less capacity. But if you do for the plant maintenance, you can further extend it. Okay. Suddenly, if the breakdown occurred, you have to arrange everything suddenly. So it is a matter of cost. So in case of plant maintenance, you can reduce the cost. So overall, these things if you consider, which will increase the profit. Okay. Now there is a term in maintenance called availability. So as we know already, we have learned the bathtub curve, so that early infant mortality failure and the wear out failure, these two periods, there is a possibility of breakdown. But during this period, the middle segment of the bathtub curve, here the failure will be more or less negligible. So that time is called uptime, and this first segment and the last segment is the downtime. So if you take the ratio of uptime to the total time, that means uptime plus downtime, that is called the availability of the system or the plant. Okay. Now what are the type of maintenance? So that those are classified in preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, and the breakdown maintenance. You know, in the preventive maintenance means it's a regular maintenance. If it is fail or not, you will do the maintenance activity. Predictive maintenance means you are regularly, it's a condition based maintenance. You are regularly monitoring the parameters, and from there you are predicting if there is a possibility, you are forecasting the performance of the machine, that if there is a occurrence, if there is a probability to occur any disturbance or the breakdown or not. So today this predictive maintenance is very important, and we will be learning it in detail in this course. And the breakdown maintenance, you know, once the breakdown is there, definitely you have to go for the maintenance. So what is the benefit of preventive maintenance? Okay. So definitely if you are doing rather than waiting for its end, I mean till its breakdown. If you do that preventive maintenance periodically, so lower cost will be there, failure will be less, the less downtime will be there, less repair will be there. You need not to keep, means inventory, the stock inventory also can be kept less. You can increase the life, increase the production, and if there is a breakdown, sometimes this can cause some job hazard that can be avoided, which will in turn increase the safety of the operator. Okay, now we will learn what are the technique. As I told, we will be going to learn in detail about the predictive maintenance. Means predictive maintenance means prediction of the present condition of the plant or machinery, and based on that to take the necessary action. So what are the parameters, what are the way, what are the techniques are adopted conventionally? So most of the heavy power and the process industry involve lot of rotatory system, rotor dynamics are involved. So as you know, if there is a rotating system, it will cause some unbalance. Definitely there will be some residual mass in the rotating system or the rotor, which will cause unbalance, dynamic unbalance, that will cause some vibration. So by seeing that, you can predict the condition. So this, in the next lecture we will be learning about the one part of turbine predictive maintenance. We will learn how to capture the orbit diagram of a turbine. It's a turbo engine, it is a turbo system rotating high speed 3000 rpm. So by capturing the orbit diagram, how to understand what are the fault, then the next lecture we will be learning that. And also by taking the time domain vibration data, how you can predict how to convert the time domain data to frequency domain, and from that FFT. And you know, today FFT is very common thing for frequency domain analysis. It's the way to FFT basically is a algorithm of discrete Fourier transform to convert time domain data to frequency domain data. All these things we will be learning in the subsequent lectures or classes in this course. The wear and the debris analysis. Say in the oil, from the oil chamber bottom there will be tapping. So if you collect the some sample, how much metallic magnetic components are there, that may be deposited due to increase of friction between the rotating parts, and from there you can predict, by quantifying it you can predict whether that system or the components, something is to be repaired or not. The oil analysis in the transformer. In the transformer there will be a transformer also is a electrical machine, and the entire in normally all the power transformer, big power transformers are still today oil cooled. It will be today it's earlier it was hydrocarbon based, today it's paraffin based. A lot of polymer based oil came, which will provide better breakdown and the dielectric strength. So by analyzing the oil, we can, because if any inside internally any breakdown is happening, definitely the dielectric value of the oil will be getting reduced. So by taking the sample of that oil, you can predict the condition of the transformer. The motor current signature. If you can get the most, I can tell you, rather than the motor current, the signature, the electrical signature of a circuit breaker, it is very important, and I have done it. I have done it long back for our SF6 breakers. Basically, it will give the arcing characteristics of the contacts. There will be a transducer connected in the moving contact of the breaker, and when the shunt coil and the closing coil is actuating, what should be the delay, and based on that how the contact travel, everything it will be mapped. This will, and how the auxiliary contacts are getting engaged. These are the things. If you want to learn particular things, I can share you, because I have that entire setup in my lab. That is called, there are 3 systems are parallelly connected to get the circuit breaker signature analysis. One is called ISAC 24. It is, I am using scope make instrument. So those are there are 3 subsystems. One is HiSAC 2406. That is only, basically that is a kind of data logger, big. It is specific for that circuit breaker data capturing. Then Scott MXP, that is basically the time interval. It is basically measuring the closing and tripping time. Another is DCRM 100B, that is dynamic contact resistance meter. So with this, the data which will be captured through these 3 components, and using that, if you have the some technical knowledge and the dynamics of a circuit breaker, then you can predict the health of the breaker. Like a doctor is predicting the condition of the heart by seeing the ECG. It is same. Thermography. You know, thermography, it is based on the IR, infrared. The heating object will be radiating the heat, IR, and that things it will be captured, and further it will be post processed, and it will be mapped in a thermal image. Through that you can, because you know that Stephen Boltzmann formula of radiation. So from that it is today thermography is a very efficient way to do the condition based maintenance for transformer, but there is a limitation. Only it will give you the surface temperature. It cannot give you the, it cannot penetrate. For that purpose NDT is evolved. You can use X-ray, ultrasound techniques, liquid penetration test, eddy current testing. All these things are there. So if you want to understand it in better way, you have to come to my lab, and I can demonstrate it. What are the sensors to be used? The selection of the sensors are also very important. So that part I am not going today's lecture. So just I am giving brief idea. Sensor of the selection is very important, and how you are going to post process it. Normally, for in my lab there is a, I can show you there is a rotor dynamic simulation system. Normally I will capture the raw data and I will take the data in MATLAB and I will import the data to MATLAB workspace and I will do whatever I want. I used to do that and I am satisfied on that, because one instrument it will give their own way. Everybody's algorithm is fixed. They have thought something. What I need, I may not get it. So that's why I have a very good transducer and a very good data logger with high resolution ADC. Sometimes I will make my own ADC and capture the data. It is always better. It is flexible, and after that I can do whatever I want. The post-process part, MATLAB is one of the best tool I ever seen. So for for vibration monitoring, accelerometer. For wear and debris analysis, that is spectrophotometer. Coil analyzer, it is a particle count sensor. For current, it is Hall effect sensor. You need not to connect physically. You clamp it. Thermography is IR camera. And NDT, today lot of manufacturers standard off the shelf components are there. So that is ultrasound probe, eddy current probe, everything. All these things are there. So that is readily available. So this is the brief introduction of maintenance, and as I told, we will be going more and more about this predictive maintenance, condition monitoring. That we will go for the next lecture. Today we will have just slight idea about it's a very preliminary idea about the FFT. So let us take a sine. This is a sinusoidal signal. Let us say it is a 50 Hertz. I am taking a voltage sensing. Simulation time I am giving 100 millisecond. Okay, let us simulate it. So you see, this is the time domain signal. Now if you do the FFT, and if I enlarge this area, you see I am getting a peak. I am getting a peak of around, you see, 50 Hertz. In 50 Hertz I am getting a peak. Now let us do one more exercise. Let me add here some other frequency. So let us reduce, I am reducing, it's a half, and let us it is 100 Hertz. Now you see, you are getting a time domain signal like this. Even though I can understand this is a 100 Hertz component, but that is depend on your practice, how you are dealing with this kind of data. But it is a very smooth data. But if the data is unfiltered data, you cannot predict what frequency is mixed with that. But it is very easy if you take the FFT. Now let us enlarge it. You see, the second peak came. It is at 100 Hertz. It's very simple. FFT is a very important tool. So I will detail you how to do the FFT. First I will give you the concept of FFT. As I told, FFT is a algorithm to compute discrete Fourier transform. So that I will explain, but you need not to do in your hand, because we need not to spend more time to compute all these things. Standard tools are there. I'll always suggest MATLAB. It's a very good tool to do the FFT. Let us add some more component and we will understand how the situation is getting more complicated. From the time domain data, really it is very difficult to predict. So with that I am adding some more, say some 1000 hertz, and I add here 0.2. If I do that, now you see something, and with that let us add some more thing. Let us add here 700 hertz. Just I am showing, I am giving you an idea. I will show you its practical, some of my practical experience. I'll demonstrate some data so that you can understand why it is I am telling you today. See, it is something become like this. Here, can you tell what are the frequencies are involved in this signal, time domain signal? But if I convert into Laplace domain, frequency domain or Laplace domain, I can tell very quickly. You see, it is giving the peak. Now I can tell you, so very easily, this is 1000 hertz, this is 700 hertz, this is 100 hertz, and this is the fundamental. So you see, FFT is a very clear-cut tool where I can convert the time domain data to frequency domain, and I can tell very easily what are the frequency components are dominating. Now you see, one simple example, I'm just with that I will stop it. Say this is here, this is the shaft, okay, and this area is bearing. Now if there is a much more clearance on the bearing, if it is rotating, what will happen? It will one time hit here, hit here, hit here, hit here, hit here during rotation. So in one rotation I will get 2 time hit in the bearing outer, or the bearing, whatever the if I put the transducer in the top and the bottom portion of the bearing enclosure cover, then in one rotation I will get 2 times hit. One is top hit, another is bottom hit. So that means if my rotor is rotating at 3000, that means I will get 3000 means 3000 rotation per minute. So my frequency is 3000 by 60. Minute means 60 seconds. So 50 hertz. So if I take that time domain data, and I can show you, because that will be much more clear if you see my, I request you one day to come to my lab. I will lose the bearing area. Slightly I will lose it, and I will take the vibration data and capture the data. I will convert into FFT in MATLAB. You will see at what RPM I am rotating. Say if I am rotating, if my RPM is X, so my frequency is X by 60, that many hertz. So if it is rotating 3000, so frequency is 50 hertz. So if that is loose, then definitely you will get a dominant peak at 100 hertz. These are the benefits to understand the problem from the time domain data. So these are all only I was telling you. So this is all about today's lecture. So tomorrow, in the next lecture, we will be starting, as I told, the what is turbine orbit diagram, and from the orbit diagram how you can predict the present condition and how you can forecast the future of the turbine, means what is going to happen, whether it is advisable to run or not. These are the things we will be discussing next lecture. So hope it will be useful. Thank you so much.